Welcome back, everyone. I'm here today with Laura Yates from GB Ultras, and we're here today to talk about the Chester 100, which happened not too long ago. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I know it's quite busy time for you at the moment because GB Ultras events are kind of back to back now, aren't they?
Yeah, we've got events sort of every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks from now through until September.
Wow. No time, no rest for the wicked then, is there?
No, there isn't. Busy, busy, busy.
So, let's just jump right into it. Where did the idea for the Chester 100 come from?
It was really sprung off the back of Chester 50. I'm sure many people know now that Wayne is the founder of GB Ultras. And one of the first events that he did was Chester 50. Um, Along with M2L and Ultra Great Britain. So Chester 100 really was just the next step up from Chester 50. It's a great location, very historical, some great trails around there. So yeah, it was the next step really for GB Ultras and longer distances.
So it was GB Ultra's first 100 of the year. What have you been focusing on bringing this year to participants?
Yeah, it's the first 100 mile, and this year we've seen quite a significant increase in participants across all of our 100 mile events, which is great to see.
Yeah.
People wanting to push themselves further and further and further. So with this one, it's a good introduction to 100 miles. So with this one, you're getting a lot of new people coming into the distance. So it's just making sure that you're looking after everyone really. You want them to have a good experience. You want every single person to finish. Unfortunately, it's not always the case. But yeah, it's just making sure they're well looked after. They feel confident enough to go around the route and yeah, get to the finish.
Do you have quite a lot of people who maybe do the 50 and then go straight to the 100 as well?
Yeah, we do. It's the 100 mile takes in a lot of the 50 mile route, more so this year because we had to divert a little bit. So yeah, they'll come and do the 50 mile. They've done the training. The 50 mile is about what 6 weeks before the 100 mile, so it's just great. It's great to continue and go straight into the 100 mile in the same year. So yeah, they're well spaced out for that.
So what's the route like, and what difficulty would you place it at amongst the rest of the GB Ultras events?
So I would say out of all our 100 mile races, it's the most straightforward one. It's marked by us, none of the others are marked by the team. So we put out biodegradable tape and laminated arrows at all key turns. Um, and so the route starts at Ellesmere Port Sports Village, like with the 50 mile. It follows the canal, and like I said, this year we had to divert slightly. There was quite a lot of flooding along the River Dee. So for this year's event, they followed the canal into Chester. They did a little loop around Chester City because, I mean, it's the most historical part of the route. You can't miss that bit out. And then they rejoined the canal down to Waverton and then on to Peckforton and Beeston, which is where they pick up the Sandstone Trail. And they head then over Frodsham Hill and into Frodsham, which is the halfway point, where drop bags are located for everyone. And then from there, they followed the River Weaver up to Preston Brook, which was a new checkpoint location this year. So we've added checkpoints just to make it that bit better for everyone. And then there's like a loop that they do. They go up to Stockton Heath, follow the Transpennine Trail down to Spike Island, and then rejoin the canal back to Preston Brook, and then follow the River Weaver back to Frodsham. And then from there, they go over Helsby Hill, and then follow the River Gowie back to Ellesmere Port Sports Village, and they're done. Easy as that.
Easy peasy, just a quick 100
Yeah,
miles. So
yeah.
what's the your were you at the halfway point then, where all the drop bags were at any point?
So I did go to Frodsham
Mhm.
for a little while, and then I went with the front of the pack, sort of onwards. So I went up to help them open Sandy Lane Community Centre because Sean was coming pretty speedy down there. and then headed back to Preston Brook, which is the double checkpoint. So they do Preston Brook, they do the loop around Stockton Heath, Warrington, Spike Island, and then they come back to Preston Brook. So it's quite a good location, along with Frodsham, where you see the runners twice. So
So
keep an eye
what
on
was
them.
the energy like when you're meeting the runners kind of that far into the race? What sort of energy were they
Oh
bringing?
God, it's so mixed. Like some of them come in quite broken and in need of some food and a bit of looking after, and others come in and they're like buzzing because it's the furthest they've ever gone, and they're enjoying the race and they're just, enjoying the experience really. So yeah, it's very mixed.
Very mixed. So how many checkpoints were there?
So for this year, we had 12 checkpoints on the route. So as I've mentioned, we added Preston Brook this
Yeah.
time at the Village Hall. So they visited that twice before the loop, which just gives us that bit more visual on the runners. We can keep an eye on them better, make sure they're okay. And then it's round the loop in Warrington, it's sort of 6 or 7 miles then between checkpoints, and that's usually done through the night. So it's just making sure we've got a better eye on them, really, having that extra checkpoint there. But most of the checkpoints are in village halls. They have hot food, hot drinks. For the most part, support crew can visit them. They couldn't come to Preston Brook because it's in quite a residential area.
Mm.
But we do give them alternate locations. So there's a spa just up the road that they can park on, or just along the canal down there, they can see their runners. But the village hall itself, um, we like to keep nice and quiet, especially because we are there through the night. We don't want to be waking up the neighbours with sort of 100 cars coming and going through the night. So yeah, but yeah, all village halls along the route, apart from the odd one. And yeah, they're great. The community around Chester is great. We reuse the same ones every year, pretty much.
So I did the Chester 50 and I loved the volunteers, and up until I mean I'd heard about how amazing the race volunteers were, but those checkpoint volunteers are amazing. Why do you think they kind of want to spend their night in a hut in the middle of Chester helping out other people?
I think most of them do it just for the love of helping other people and seeing them accomplish something. Um, and I think I say it every time. Our volunteers are fantastic. Like they have such an energy, even through the night, even when it's getting quite tough. So again, at Preston Brook, because they were a double checkpoint, they had both checkpoints open at the same time at one point. So it gets quite tricky then because you've got back of the pack coming through for the first checkpoint and the front runners coming through for the second checkpoint. They just take it in their stride. Like I try and help and I just get in the way. And they've got it down. Like everybody has a job, they know what they're doing. Don't interfere, Laura, because you'll just put something wrong. So,
Stay out
so
the
yeah,
way.
to honest, every checkpoint I go to, that's just like I think somebody compared it to a Formula One pit stop crew. Like everybody knows what they're doing, what needs to be done. They know if somebody needs a bit of sympathy. They know if somebody needs a come on, are you getting out of here now kind of thing. Yeah, they just do it for the love of doing it, most of them, which is great. We love having them. So
What you want in a volunteer really is,
yeah.
especially in a 100 mile, you approach, you've got that brain fog. You kind of want them to just like help you and then kind of shove you back out the door again sometimes.
Yeah, you do. And I think as well, a lot of the runners, we have a lot of runners that do come and volunteer for us after they've run a race. And they I always get the comments like, oh, I didn't know like that this much was involved at the checkpoints. Like I come in and I go out and that's it. And these people are here for like 24 hours helping every single person that comes through. And there's very little rest
Yeah.
for them. So they're absolute troopers, all of them.
So the race conditions this year, how do you think that affected the runners?
Well, as we know, it's been rather wet since about October. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about the weather. However, it was so much drier than Chester 50. And those that I think did both will say like how much better Chester 100 was. Those that only did Chester 100 still think it was quite muddy, but in comparison, it was actually quite a dream compared
I
to
did
Chester
say,
50.
I was like, I will never complain about mud ever again after I finished Chester 50. I'm
Oh,
like, never again.
yeah,
Nothing will ever be as muddy, but that's fine.
I
We did
know. And
it.
I wish there was something we could do to make it less muddy and less slippy, but it's just the weather, I'm
Still
afraid.
completed it. That
We
was the
do,
race. That's the race you
yeah,
get at the end of the day. The race you've got is the race you get. And, I still
exactly. And
completed.
we, like I said, we had to divert off the River Dee. That was just, it was far too unsafe to send anybody down there at any point with the race. So, um, yeah, we don't like to divert, and it only is done if absolutely necessary. So if a bit of mud, unfortunately, is not going to be diverted around, you just have to crack on and get through it.
So, the conditions of the actual course, do you think that slowed anybody down, or do you think people kind of took it in their stride a little bit?
I think most took it in their stride. I mean, you'll always get. I love mud. I am a mud lover. So when there's mud, I'm in my element. But there's people at the complete other end of the scale that absolutely hate mud, and if you are one of those people, it will have slowed you down quite a bit. Um, Sean, who led for most of the run, I know that he does OCR races and is quite a muddy person too. So I think for him, he just floated across the mud. Um, so yeah, I think it depends on how you are with
Mm.
the certain levels of mud, really.
So let's talk about Sean. He led for most of the race, didn't he? I was watching on the tracker
He
and
did.
he suddenly disappeared. But he was on track to win and get a new course record, wasn't he?
Yeah, he went. I mean, every time I saw him, I moved with the front of the pack for the first 60, 70 miles. Every time I saw him, he looked so well. Like he was running so well and so strong. His nutrition was going well. Um, he just seemed really happy. You know, when you see someone that like everything seems to be going right for a race. Um, so he went out. I'd seen him at Sandy Lane Community Centre, and then I went back to Preston Brook to see him back on the way round. And at Sandy Lane, he looked great. He was in and out, maybe 5 minutes or so. Um, and then I saw him again at Preston Brook, and he walked into the checkpoint and said to me, "Take my tracker." Which I said no. Let's just have a sit down and a think about this, and try and come up with a bit of a strategy to help you carry on. Um, So we sat and had a bit of a chat. He was probably 4 or 5 miles ahead of second place. So at that point, he could have probably walked for a little while. He was having issues with his tummy. He'd not really eaten or drunk very much since Sandy Lane. Um, and he did look a bit shattered at this point. But like I say, we tried. I'd spoken to his support crew before coming into the checkpoint. They tried to encourage him. He had a pacer that was going to go with him, so he had somebody with him. Um, but I think the longer he sat there, the more it was unlikely he was going to go back out. So um, he did get to a point where he then got cold. So if you're sending somebody back out and they're only going to be able to walk for a little while, it's not really something you want to do because he can't then walk back to the temperature he was at when he was running. So yeah, he made the decision there to stop. So, it's always hard to take people's trackers from them when they're DNFing, and it's even harder when he's had such a good race up until that point. You really, you really want you really want to see them finish. You want to see the course record be broken and that. But yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't for him this time. But hopefully 2025 will be his year for Chester
He'll
100.
he'll be hungry for more now. He'll be back out there.
Yes,
We all know
yeah.
Sean. He'll be back out
He's
there.
got it. He's got it in him for sure. So just
Hey,
I
even
think if he'd have managed to at least drink some of his carbohydrate drink, I think he'd have been fine. But he just was not managing
yeah.
very much. So
You know, some of the greatest athletes out there have DNF due to tummy troubles. You know, Courtney Dauwalter, I think, DNF'd a really big race a couple of years back for the same issue, and then she came back the next year and won it. So it kind of really is,
yeah,
you know, the how you are on that day, isn't it? So let's
yeah.
talk about the excuse me, the rest of the competition then. Who were the winners? I know that Sana Duthie was out there absolutely smashing it right from the beginning. What was her race like?
She is just fantastic. Like, I was at Frodsham when she came in for her drop bag, and I think every female volunteer was just around her, like fangirling, going. And she's just the loveliest as well, because people were asking her questions about her drop bag, and she's talking the checkpoint volunteers through what's in a drop bag and how she packs it. She's just calm and laid back and organized would be the best word. Like, she's organized, she knows what she wants, she knows what she needs. She's extremely polite to the checkpoint volunteers when she comes in, because everybody wants to help, so they often ask, like, do you want a hot drink, do you want some hot food? She knew what food she was eating, and she was like, no, I don't, I know I sound rude, but I'm really fine, I've got my own stuff sorted, I'm really sorry, I'm really sorry. And I'm like, don't be sorry, you know what you want.
Yeah.
That's why we're here. Just tell us what you want, what you need, and we'll send you on your way. But she led the ladies race from the beginning, and at one point I was so hopeful she was going to win the whole thing overall. But she did drop back slightly behind Sean, sort of through Frodsham, I think it was. Um, but yeah, she's just a trooper, and just has the right mindset, the right capabilities for doing it, and just stormed it as we've seen her do many times before.
I've seen a video of her, and I think she was coming through maybe 70 or 80 miles, and somebody was videoing her, and she's like, "Hi guys," and she's like just like waving and being all like, "Hi, how is everyone?" And I'm like, you are insane, because that's incredible that you're still this kind of like okay, because I'd be coming through crying.
Yeah,
I'd be like, "No one look at
just
me."
they're chatty, they're polite. Yeah, just makes it look like a breeze, to be
Yeah.
honest. But I mean, I know Sana quite well, and see the training that she puts in, and she puts the work in to get the reward out, so it's deserved.
So who were the winners? We have Sana, who came in at
She came in at 22 hours, 3 minutes and 18 seconds. And then second lady was Claire Farrell in 25 hours, 25 minutes and 57 seconds. And she was always second or third throughout, I think. She sort of was leapfrogging one of the other ladies quite a bit. And then third was Laura Jump in 27 hours, 51 minutes and 43 seconds. And she just had a very consistent race, very consistent throughout, and just sort of picked people off as she went. So that was well deserved, that third place.
really strong women's field,
Yeah,
isn't it? What was the
yeah, they were
split
all
like?
fantastic.
What was the split like, male to female, for this race?
So on the start line, we had 23% of women on the start line, which is, I think, is pretty good for a 100 mile. I mean, we're always trying to encourage women to come and do these races. And I will always help every single woman that stands on the start line, because I want the women to beat the men, basically. Um, so yeah, we had a good, strong field of women out there, and I did say to the checkpoint volunteers at Preston Brook to watch the difference between the men and the ladies when they come into the checkpoints, because I really feel like ladies know they know what they want, they come in, they get what they want, they get themselves sorted and go. And a lot of the men come in a little bit broken, need a bit more help. And like definitely the first 5 or 6 ladies that came through were in and out of that checkpoint. They got what they needed, they were out again. Whereas we were sort of now coming towards the middle of the pack of men, maybe, and they were sitting for a lot longer and probably eating a lot more, which is what they need, you know. But yeah, certainly sometimes you need to encourage them to get out, whereas the ladies are like, right, I'm going, see you later. So,
We
so
just
yeah,
know how to
definitely,
suffer.
yeah, strong field of women out there.
So in the men's
Um,
race, who won in the men's?
so yeah, the men's, I mean, the lead changed quite a few times because Sean DNF'd, and then we had a new lead for the race, and then he DNF'd. So the winner was Philip Holcroft, and he finished in 20 hours, 20 minutes, and 2 seconds. Very consistent race for him. Again, that's what will pay off in these longer distances. Consistency is the key to this. Second place was Liam Hayward in 20 hours, 57 minutes, and 13 seconds. And in third place was Sean Doherty in 21 hours, 44 minutes, and 26 seconds. Like I say, they were all pretty consistent throughout, those guys. Just kept at a good pace, kept refueling, and got to the finish line. So, yeah.
So did he know he'd finished? Or did he know he'd won when he crossed the finish line? Or was he was it a bit, oh, wow.
I don't know the answer to that question. I will check with Ian now because
Yeah,
Ian was at the finish and he will have told him the good news.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm not too sure if he knew or not. So I know some support crews tell people when they're winning, just to give them a bit of a like keep going kind of thing, and others don't want to put the pressure on their runner, so they'll just keep it quiet. And especially if they're still going consistently well, they tend to keep it quiet a bit more. If they're flagging, then they're like, "Come on, you're leading this now," just to give them a bit of a push. But yeah, there's no point them pushing if they don't really need to push, if that makes sense.
Mhm. So what do you think racers find most difficult about a 100 miler, in particular, the Chester 100?
I think with this race, it is the night section. So it's that time of year, as we've seen. Some days quite nice and some days quite horrible. It was a fairly decent day on the Saturday. Not hot, but it was dry and quite a nice day to be out. But we're still in April, so then the night goes very cold.
Mm.
And the one error that a lot of people make is they don't put their layers on soon enough. So they wait until they're cold before they put the layers on, but then they're cold. So the layers are not going to warm them back up. Um, so my best advice on any 100 mile, not just this one, but put the layer on before you're cold. Don't let yourself get cold because that is when the race sort of starts to end for you. You'll get into a nice warm checkpoint, like, oh, this is nice, and that's where you'll stay. So as long as if you come in warm, you'll be okay because you'll want to crack on and go back out. So I just think the night time is where people struggle on any 100 mile. Also, your body's ready for bed anyway at that point, so you're tired. So it's just fighting the battle until the sun comes up, because once the sun comes up, it makes a world of difference.
Mm. What's a challenge that you face as a race director? You've brought on your partner Ian now, so you've got 3 race directors, haven't you, kind of floating around. Has that helped, do you think? Because you don't feel like you're torn between like 5 places at once?
It has helped. I mean, Ian's been with us anyway for quite a few years, and he's always in control of the finish line. He's race HQ. He's the one that you can contact at any point throughout the race. He will always have his phone. He'll always have signal. whereas myself and Wayne are out on the route a bit more. It gets quite difficult through the night because, like I've said, they're tired, they're sleepy. You're not really thinking straight. That's where people tend to get lost. They go the wrong way. They get a bit cranky. So it's just keeping on top of all that. We have people that will ring us, letting us know that they don't know where they are. So you're trying to help them sort of get back on the route. And then you might have somebody come into a checkpoint that needs some medical attention. So you've got that as well. So it's just juggling quite a few things all throughout the race. But through the night is always the more trickier section for us, and just making sure everybody's okay and keeping them going to the finish.
So what do you enjoy about this race? Is this one of your favorites?
I do like this race. It's a straightforward one for us. Like, it's really accessible. So as a race director, it's nice to be able to get to certain points on the route and know that you can extract people if you need to.
Mm.
So that's what's really good about this one, is that you can do that at pretty much at any point through the race. Whereas the mountain ones, it's a little bit more difficult to get to people, which is always a worry. But we do go out on the mountains, particularly through the night, to make sure we can get there as quick as we can to people. So yeah, it's also good, this one, because it's a first timer one for a lot of people. There's a lot of emotion at the finish line. So I always say that if you see me wearing sunglasses at the finish line and it's not sunny, there's a reason. It's to hide. I get very emotional with them. So yeah, I like watching those that it's the back of the pack people for me. The ones that have really pushed it, that are completely broken, and still get to the finish line and have the biggest cheerleading crowd ever. So yeah, it's always nice to see on this one.
There was somebody I saw on the socials that had like a huge pack of people supporting him. Who was that?
Yes, I can't remember his name now, but he was only a young lad, I think early 20s. Um, and I think he had every family member with him possible. But it's so great to have that at the finish line, like especially at a 100-mile race, because a lot of 100-mile races, when you finish, especially those that finish through the night, there's not very many people there to cheer you through. So to see that, and they were there, they were at the finish line waiting for him for probably a couple of hours, and they cheered every single person through. And it's just, as everybody knows, they do a lap of the track. So it's a bit of a boost to
Yeah.
get them round the track when there's a good amount of people there to cheer them on. It's probably a bit of a sensory overload when you've been out on your own for 100 miles, but yeah, it's I love finish lines being like that. That there's just family and friends and everybody cheering them over the line. People crying, I'm crying, and yeah.
It is amazing, isn't it? So, what's next? What race do we have next? I know the answer to
we
this. I'll be there.
Yes, you'll be there. We have Pennine Barrier next, which don't tell anyone, but it's my favourite one of the year. Um, So yeah, over the Yorkshire Three Peaks from Malham. I think it's a very busy route, but it's just beautiful around there. Absolutely beautiful. Um, it is busy, but you'll have so many people cheering you on around that route, and so much support. It'll be a great day out. Fingers crossed, we get some nice-ish weather. Just dry weather would
I
be good
don't
for
I
us.
don't care if it's cloudy all day, as long as it just doesn't rain all over me for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah,
I don't even mind just a little bit of rain, but I just don't want it absolutely bucketing down for, you know,
yeah.
13
Neither
hours.
do I.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. I shall see you, gosh, weekend after
In a
next.
week.
That's mental.
Yeah.
I shall see you then. Thank you very much for coming on.
No, thank you.